So the presentation today is all about branding. So let me just share my screen first, and then we'll just go about it. So at this point, please, Veronica, let me know if you guys are seeing this. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So the name of the presentation is Brand This. Why are we talking about brand this? Because you can brand pretty much anything. Anything can have a brand as long as you know what you're doing. So I'm going to give you guys a general introduction to what branding is and how branding branches out. And what that means is that branding is the core element of a very big industry, which is the marketing and advertising industry. Every company has products and services, but those products and services usually need to be recognizable because they are competing against similar products in similar categories and different categories, and because of technology nowadays globally. So you don't compete only in your country or in your neighborhood or just in your city. You're basically competing all over the world now because the internet allows you to do that. So branding takes a different role in this century because the expansion provided by the internet. So first things first, what is branding? The definition, the dictionary definition of branding is pretty simple. It's the promoting of a product or service by identifying it with a particular brand. What does this mean in general? They're saying that when I have a brand, I have products, and those products, when consumers look at them or just normal people look at the product, they are supposed to understand who the brand is, who made the product, what is the product about, and can you remember the product and also the company that makes the product. If you think about it, maybe if I ask you questions about the products that you guys love the most, I'm pretty sure you know what those products are. But do you know who made the product? Like sometimes we like a pair of shoes, or sometimes we like a perfume, or we like some type of food. But when someone asks us, do you know the logo? Do you remember the logo of this company or this product specifically? Sometimes we realize that's not the case. We don't remember. So that is the part of branding where people like myself have to think very carefully about how to create and craft a brand from the communication side of things. How does it look? How does it feel? How does it make you feel? So those are the important questions of branding. With that said, I'm going to show you guys the definition of branding that I like to use. So to me, this is branding. Branding is making you fall in love with brands you didn't even know about. Sometimes we start liking things that we don't use. You just fall in love with the brand. You fall in love with their message. You fall in love with the things they care and the things they stand by. When you start a brand, one of the important things is to make sure your consumers not only remember who you are, but love who you are. When you fall in love, there's a thing that gets created right away, and is loyalty. When we love a brand, we don't have a problem buying it again and again. Maybe you have that those, let's say, sweatpants, or you have a backpack or a purse that you love. And then when it gets old, then you're like, oh, I need a new one. You look at all the brands, and it doesn't feel like the one you had. And that's because there's a relationship now that has been established between you and the brand. And usually it's because you love the brand. You love what they make. You love the materials they use. You love the people that create these products, and you love the people that use them. You feel like you belong, right? And then you're falling in love with the brand in general. And when you fall in love with the brand, it's a lot easier to fall in love with the products. So keep this in mind when you're thinking about branding. It's about fall in love with the brand, everything that the brand represents. If I'm going too fast, if I'm speaking too fast, please let me know. You can ask me questions at any time. Just if you're curious about anything, just please, let's make this a conversation. Any questions so far? I know everybody probably is muted, so remember to unmute yourself. No questions? All right, I'll keep going. So next slide. I wanted to introduce you guys to the concept of branding. What is branding? Where does this start? So the earliest recognizable movement for branding, it starts around the 1500s. And this comes from the Asian North or like Scandinavian side of the world. And the word for them is branda. And branda means to brand cattle. Back in the days, we used to actually get a piece of wood, like really hot, and press it against, our friendly cows in order to create a brand, to create a logo. Because farmers needed to recognize the cattle. They needed to make sure that when the cattle were in an open field, everybody knew that those cows are mine. And to your left here, you can see what those brands look like. These were like basically the beginning of a logo. These were like their family names, and they were basically branded onto the cattle to make sure to claim ownership. So this is a very ancient practice. We don't do this anymore. Well, in some places they do, but now we put a little tag on the cow's ear to make sure we recognize where do they belong. So this is the beginning of branding. So this is nothing new. It feels sometimes new because branding has this ability to reinvent themselves consistently. So the practice itself has changed and keeps evolving because technology keeps evolving, and branding is really good at adapting. I want to move to something, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be questions here, hopefully. To your left, you see a little napkin, and the title in this slide says the $1.5 million napkin. And the reason for this is because that logo that someone drew on that napkin literally cost $1.5 million in 1998. I think some of you guys are not even around at that time. So imagine this. This logo, what you see in there, that little drawing or sketch, was done by a very famous graphic designer, and is one of the most amazing women in the industry. Her name is Paula Scher. She founded an agency, which is at this point one of the 3 top branding and design agencies in the whole world, called Pentagram. The client here is Citibank. Citibank is a world banking organization, so I think we have it in Colombia as well. The logo, just doing this, it took her 5 minutes, cost $1.5 million. And it was literally designed on a napkin while she was having lunch with the owners of 2 banks. So let me show you the next slide and see how this evolved. So what you see here is the logo she created after she drew it on that napkin. Obviously, these logos go through a whole bunch of different versions and iterations and colors, but when you look at it, this logo looks exactly the same as what she drew on that napkin. The 2 logos that you see at the bottom were the 2 companies that were merging together. And by merging, I mean they were becoming a single entity, a single bank. So Paula, what it did is basically what we call a merging of those 2 visual identities. And she took the umbrella of travelers and minimized it and abstracted to a point that you only have an arch. But the T in city is the actual handle of the umbrella. And then she got the name of city from the Citibank logo. So the combination of these 2 gave life to that logo. That only took 5 minutes, but it only takes 5 minutes to a person that has the level of experience and the creative capacity of someone like Paula Scher. If you're interested in graphic design, I would highly recommend to you to look at her work. She is one of the most amazing women out there. She is extremely talented, and the way she does her logos and her creativity is so accessible. It's so easy that you guys will love her work. It's amazing. So this case is here because I want you guys to understand initially the value of a logo, and then even though someone like Paula can make a logo, a beautiful logo in 5 minutes, branding can take years. You can work on creating a brand for years. I'll give you a recent example in Colombia. If you're familiar with Bancolombia, the Colombian bank, they changed their brand identity about 3-4 months ago. It used to be a logo that represented our flag, our national flag, the yellow, blue, and red. And now it's all black and white. And there was a lot of controversy around that logo. And the marketing director said, we have been working on changing our branding, their entire brand and communications for the past 2 years. So Bancolombia took 2 years to redesign their logo. So sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 2 years or more. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay, I'll go.
So, I have a question, Andres, regarding the change of image of Bancolombia.
Sure.
So, how does or why would a company move from such a colorful brand to a black and white brand statement? What was the reason behind?
Sure. So not too political, but the reasons why Bancolombia specifically changed the colors is for 2 reasons. One is in the actual logo, it says Bancolombia. So they know that everybody knows where the bank is from because it's in their name. And the reason why they remove all the color from their logo, not the whole brand identity, just the logo itself, is because inclusivity and political reasons. They thought everybody should be welcome, not only Colombians, because now they're not just a Bank Colombia. They're not only a Colombian bank. They are servicing other countries, like Costa Rica and I think Mexico. So there's other countries now. So they don't want to say we're only in Colombia. So the reason why their image is black and white now is because they want to be more accommodating. They want to be more open. They don't want to tell people it's only Colombians. And they didn't change the name because it's still rooted in Colombia. So that is the reason for that. But when you look at the rest of the communications, as the marketing director would say, there's still yellow and red and blue in other pieces, like in their website or in emails that they send. So the colors didn't go away. They just went away from their logo because they're trying to make a logo that is more neutral. Does that answer your question, Vero?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next slide. So let's talk about brand basics. What makes a brand a brand? What makes this brand successful? So there are 3 really basic things here: personality, tone, and voice. Those are the core elements of a brand. If you guys are trying to create a logo, if you're trying to work on your personal brand, on someone else's brand, you have to hit these 3 things. They need personality, they need tone and voice. So personality, let's look at, look to your left or to your right, look at your classmates. Everybody has a different personality. Someone is the funny one, someone is the very athletic one, someone is the nerdy one. So their personality is there. So you have to stay true to your personality. And when it comes down to a brand, you also have to tell people what your personality is. So how do you do that? You do it with your tone and your voice. Some people, let's talk about tone. Some people are very serious. When you talk to a bank in general, banks are very serious because they're talking about money. They're talking about your future. They're talking about things that people get nervous. So when you talk to a bank, you have to be serious because you need to know that they have your best interest in mind. So the tone is serious. But when we talk about soccer, let's talk about the national team, for example. So the tone is very energetic. When Bavaria is sponsoring the national Colombian team, you see they talk about energy, they talk about happiness, they talk about the way we play, they talk about how Colombia is, that we're happy, that we're colorful, that we can move the ball in special ways. The tone changes because now people are looking at energy, they're looking at happiness. That's basically the tone. And the voice is how you communicate your tone. So sometimes people create almost terms. You know, when in Colombia and Medellin, you use the word parcero. Parcero is a very specific voice for Medellin. Other people use it in other cities. But you know, when someone says, for example, I live in the United States, I live in LA. If I hear someone say parcero, I'm like, oh, you're from Medellin. That's the voice. I recognize that anywhere because it's part of the vocabulary. Someone created this and we adapted it. So that's your voice. If you do it as a person, your voice is a very, very important thing. There's sometimes people get confused between tone and voice. So remember, tone is how you say things Is it serious? Is it happy? Is it exciting? Is it lovey? Your voice is the way you present yourself with that tone. So you can create an entire vocabulary. You can be loud, you can be soft, you can whisper. There's brands that kind of whisper, they're very soft, like Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson when they're talking about kids. It's very soft. But when you look at Coca-Cola, their tone is happy and their voice is energetic. It's always infused with energy because it's all about the joy in life. Any questions? Are you guys clear on these three? Okay, I'll keep going. So let's just dive a little deeper into brand ecosystems and branding. This is where sometimes people get confused because there's branding, there's marketing, and there's advertising. So when you look at this graphic, you see that branding is the inner circle. The reason for that is because there's no marketing and there's no advertising if there is no branding. Branding is the core element. When you guys start, let's say down the road, some of you guys are going to be starting your own companies or working for a big company. Those companies have to start with the branding. Who are they? What are they about? What are they selling? Who are they selling these things to? And then when they ask those questions, the beginning of the brand starts. Then you realize, I need a logo, and I need colors, and I need photography, and I need text that talk about my products and my company and the history. So all those things are the core elements of branding. And when those elements get established, when you have an idea of your personality, your tone, your voice, when you start getting your graphic elements put together, which is the brand identity, then there's another world that opens up, and it's the marketing. So marketing is going to use the tone and voice to convey your brand message. And marketing has many, many ways to do that. Nowadays it's social media, but sometimes it's out of home. And out of home are like billboards that you see on the streets, or the digital billboards that you see on a shopping mall or at the airport. Those things. And who makes those things? Who create those videos online in your TikTok or your Instagram stories? Who create a TV spot, or who creates a magazine ad? That is the advertising industry. And in that advertising industry, then you find a lot of people like myself, which I'm a creative director and design director. So I live in the advertising sphere, but I'm also part of the marketing, and I'm also part of the branding structure. Here to the side, you see those two lines, one that says target audience and one that says core audience. What those means is that your target audience is the people that you want to talk to. Depends on your branding. If you guys are selling something, not everybody wants it. So who wants it? That is the target audience. Those are the people that you're going to say, I want to sell this to these people. I want to sell this to Andrés. So I'm your target audience, and your target audience has to be defined by you. So let's say it's going to be males and females between 18 years old and 25 years old that like, for example, like sports, and they ride a bicycle. So you get an idea what the target audience is. It's very simple. You have to define that in order to make sure that your message, your brand message, gets delivered to the right people. But to the right of your target audience, there is your core audience. And your core audience is different than the target audience because your core audience is the people that you already know that they're interested in your branding. If we're talking about bicycles, and I like to ride my bicycle because I prefer to ride my bicycle than driving my car, then I'm part of your core audience. You don't have to sell me on the idea that riding a bicycle is a good thing. I already know that, and I already believe that. So I'm part of your core audience. So your job is to keep me engaged and make sure I know that there's new things on the bicycle world, and then I get engaged with you. Then I'm like, okay, I want to have a conversation about this. Your target audience, remember, is the audience that you're trying to capture. This is new people that you're trying to bring into your branding because because data now, which is a collection of information, can tell you these people are open to the possibility of riding a bicycle. They're just not sure. So that's where advertising and marketing start crafting a plan on how to, make you fall in love with riding your bicycle. So those would be your target audience. The brand ecosystem in general is basically the space where the brand is surrounded by other activities that help extend the voice and tone of the brand in audiences in all channels. That definition means that a brand understands that there's a group of people that need something. So the brand starts creating products to target the people in that ecosystem. And they're like, okay, so I make bicycles, but a bicycle needs something else. You might need a bicycle helmet, and then you might need some apparel that you want to wear. So I can start creating a brand ecosystem where I can sell you the bicycle, but I can also sell you a helmet, and I can also sell you some clothing that goes along with all this. I can sell you bottled waters, water bottles. So there's all these things that are part of the brand ecosystem. So when you create a brand, you have to try to understand quickly, do I need to create a brand ecosystem because I see opportunities? Great companies are really good at this. For example, Apple. A lot of us might have an iPhone and might have a Mac, like a laptop, and you might have a watch. And all this are made by Apple. And eventually Apple is going to put you on a car because they're working on selling you a car. And then in 5 years from now, you'll see that it wouldn't be a surprise to see an Apple car just down the street. Moving on. This is something that I really would love for you guys to just maybe ask me some questions here, because I know some of you guys, I hope some of you guys eventually will go into graphic design. We definitely need more talented women in this industry. So I would love for you guys to consider this. Brand elements. What does this mean? A brand is like a big monster. It has so many pieces and is ginormous. But there are core elements to create the visuals of a brand. Not the story alone, but visually, what is this brand trying to do? Everyone out there is made out of the same elements. They are made out of a logo, a color palette, and a specific user experience, and more. All these elements kind of come together to form what we all know in the industry as the brand identity. It's called brand identity because I can identify that brand by looking at their logo, by looking at their photos, just by the colors sometimes. And this is how designers help communicate what the brand means and make beautiful, engaging brands. For example, if I ask you guys, and hopefully at least one person can answer this, what are the colors of the Éxito?
I think the colors are yellow, red, and black.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That is the core, and that is what we need to create when we do brand elements. I'm pretty sure most of you guys actually know what the logo of the Éxito is. Do you like the logo or not? That's a different question, if you like the design of it. But most of you guys, when you see those colors together, your brain is going to remember, oh yeah, this is the Éxito. But if I look at other supermarkets, maybe you will struggle a little bit more remembering what that logo looks like. So these 8 points here define how the logo is made. So, sorry, how the brand is made. So the brand, the first thing that you're going to see in order to have a brand is to have a logo. When you create a logo, you have a color palette. A color palette is the colors that you choose to represent your brand. So in the case of El Éxito, is yellow, red, and black. Those 3 colors define that brand. And you see it everywhere. When you go into the supermarket, when you get an email, even when you get a receipt from them. The next element is the shape. Shape sounds very generic, but when you specifically look at a website, sometimes you see on the backgrounds, someone might have circles or someone might have squares and lines, and they always use those shapes. For example, when you look at McDonald's, you see that those 2 arches that look like an M. McDonald's use that everywhere. And sometimes in their advertising, they don't even put the word McDonald's. You don't even see the logo. You just see the red and the yellow, and you see the 2 arches. and that's all I need to know is McDonald's. So that's the value of having a recognizable shape. A tagline is basically a written word that people remember. If I say Nike, do you guys know what Nike usually says? Does anybody remember? Yep, that's correct. So Nike has one of the most recognizable taglines, which is "Just do it." The reason for that is because it is a very actionable tagline. It just tells you, just do it. And then if you ask Nike, do what? And Nike is do whatever. Do whatever you want. Just do something. Go running, go jump, go swim. It doesn't matter as long as you do something. And every time that people says, just do it, someone in the room will say, oh yeah, that's what Nike says, right? Because everybody knows it. So when you stick to a tagline and it's a good one, everybody remembers you for that reason. If I tell you guys, what is Colgate? Any answers on that? I cannot hear that. Sorry, guys. It was really difficult to hear the answer. But I'll tell you something that is a very important case in branding. Sometimes sorry, you guys are breaking up.
No recomendada por odontólogos.
Okay, sure. That is one thing, and you're right. But the reason why you're saying that, which is very interesting, Colgate or Colgate in English, is not necessarily just one thing. It's a full brand of many different things. But in Colombia specifically, when people talk about, I need to brush my teeth, people don't tell you go get something else. They tell you go get Colgate, or we have to buy Colgate. Colgate is just a brand. It's not a thing. It's the same thing with I mean, back in my days, because I'm a lot older than you guys, we used to stick paper or things to make a board or something together, and we used to buy Pegastick. And people were like, hey, can you go buy Pegastick? And you don't have to buy Pegastick. You just need to buy something that helps you stick paper. But nobody else knew how to pronounce it. Nobody else knew how to say it. So everybody started calling it Pegastick. Everything was Pegastick. Pegante became Pegastick. And y crema de dientes is Colgate. But that's not true. Colgate is just one brand out of all the many ones. But older generations grew up only knowing a few, and everybody decided, no, this is the name. So that is also one of those important things that happens sometimes with the brand elements. Here on number 5, tone of voice, we know what that is. We talk about, it can be energetic, it can be happy, it can be very serious, and that kind of stuff. Number 6 is fonts. Fonts are like the typefaces. For example, if you look at this presentation, you see where it says brand elements. That is a typeface. That is called Gotham Black. And where I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, all those things, is the same typeface, but the typeface that I'm using to write logo, color palette, and fonts is a different typeface. So there's 2 types of fonts in this page. Fonts are very interesting because a lot of designers pick the right typefaces and the right fonts, and other designers don't. And if you don't pick the right font for a logo, the meaning change, because fonts also have meaning. The way we look at them, they can be heavy, they can be energetic, they can be happy, they can be kind of silly and goofy, they can be modern and futuristic, they can be clean, or they can be very adorned. So all that is an emotion that you're conveying. So number 6 and number 1 go together. In order to have a good logo, you have to have good typefaces and fonts. If you guys want to talk about that later, we can, because it's difficult for people sometimes. Number 7 is imagery. Why is imagery so important as well? Because some brands might have a very simple logo, but what they use is a lot of photography. When you look at brands, especially fashion brands, it's all about photography. When you look at how they sell you bathing suits, how they sell you jeans, how they sell you tops, it's all about their photos. Sometimes they're like really colorful, and sometimes they're really moody. Sometimes it's almost like a lot of browns. Sometimes there's a lot of yellows and reds and a lot of blues. So your imagery has a lot to say and has this meaningful moment that interacts with the consumer. When you see a big, beautiful photo and a small logo, you're like, oh yeah, I like that. I like how it makes me feel. So that is very important. And some brands don't use photography, but they might use illustrations. So illustrations, 3D artwork, animations and videos, they all fall in the category of imagery. And number 8 is not necessarily a thing that you use to design, but it's part of the brand elements, and it is positioning. And positioning means, where do you want your brand to live? So if I'm going back to the example of a bicycle, for example, if I have a brand that makes bicycles and that's my product, then I need to position my brand at the right space. So I'm going to go and advertise where riders are. I know people go and take their bike and then they go all the way up the Palmas. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can position my brand with amateur riders. There's a lot of people in Medellin that love to ride bicycles, but they're not professionals. So I'm going to position my brand and target these people. So positioning has to deal a little bit with what you guys might or might not heard about tribes. So a tribe, as a general definition of a tribe, is basically a community that has a set of values, and usually they are located in the same space. But because of internet and because you guys are part of the generation that is growing into the most interconnected era that we have ever seen, you guys don't have to worry that I'm in LA and you guys are in Medellin, because we're here together having a discussion. So you can position your brand in a global space. All you need to do is to identify the tribe you want to be a part of. So in marketing, a tribe will be, again, a social group that has the same set of codes and values, but they don't longer need to be in the same place. You guys and I, we don't need to be in the same place to be a part of something that we both like. I love, for example, I love soccer. So I root for the Colombian team all the time, but I live in LA. So sometimes I go to a place where we're playing another team and I wear my Colombian jersey because I'm part of that tribe. And people look at me and they're like, oh, so you're not from here? Like, no, I'm also an American, but I was born and raised in Colombia. So I'm gonna root for Colombia. So that makes me part of the Colombian tribe, if you wanna look at it in those terms. Is that understood?
Andres, Dalia has a question. Her question is, could we consider schools like brands?
Yes, well, every school is a brand, because I was about to go into something else, but I'll go here. For example, when you guys look at all the schools and you look at your friends that go to Pinares or go to Marymount, what is the first thing you notice? All of you guys wear different uniforms. The reason why you have different uniforms is because the uniform, among other things, it helps you differentiate yourself. Who's who? So when Pinares wears, like, I think it's red and green and that kind of stuff, and Marymount has that light blue, you guys have like a pattern in a darker sort of blue. That is part of your branding. And then you have a logo. The Enseñanza has a logo. Then you have your communications, how you use your website, how you send emails, and there's a look and feel that goes in there. That is the brand. So every high school, every college, they all have branding, and some of them have really successful branding. For example, I don't know if you guys are familiar with colleges in the United States, but for example, Harvard University is very recognizable. The MIT is very recognizable because they have spent a lot of time and money in making sure their brands are highly recognizable. So to answer your question, yes. All right, I'm gonna move to the next slide. The reason I love that question is because it really helps us understand top of mind. So what is top of mind in general? Is the idea that there's awareness that is defined as the first brand name that comes to someone's mind when asked about a specific industry. So if I ask you guys about, let's say, sodas or water, do you have a brand that you like when you're drinking water? Or a brand that you remember?
I know a brand, but I just don't normally drink bottled water.
Okay, but so okay, I'll make let's say an easy one. Let's stick to let me see what would be something. Oh God, that was.
They also answer Avian and they also answer Cristal.
Okay, perfect. So, well, okay, those are two great answers too. The reason why you guys know that is because those were the first brands that pop in your mind. You remember those. Why do you remember those? You have to ask yourself, why do I like those? Why do I remember those? All of us have a top of mind, and we usually remember 3 names because we like the brand, because we buy their products, or because we've seen a lot of advertising. So here to the right, you see these 3 columns. This was basically based on Andrés. This is, if someone asks me, what is the running shoe brand that you remember the most? It's Nike, and I remember their logo. If someone asks me, what about your music app? And I love using Spotify, and I remember the logo. What about the car brand? I love all those, and I know their logo. What is the airline brand that I use the most, or do you remember the most? When someone asks me, in Colombia, you can say Avianca, for example. That would be a good example. Most people will think about Avianca because it is the oldest and is the one that markets the most. But maybe you guys are younger and you will remember some of the brand new sort of like airlines that had happened in the past few years. I remember Delta because I usually, for work, I had to fly with Delta. So at this point, it is top of mind for me. It's the first brand that I think about. For example, even though I don't live in Colombia anymore and I miss it a lot, when someone asks me about ketchup, like salsa de tomate, I think about Fruco. I love that ketchup. It's better than Heinz. It's better than a lot of other ketchups. And there's a lot of them here in the United States. And I still love that one. So it is in my top of mind. It's the first one that I think about. When people ask me about streaming video, some people might say Netflix, but I like HBO, and that's because I love documentaries, and they have a lot of good ones. So it's in my top of mind. But if someone asks me, my top of mind in streaming brands will be HBO, Netflix, and Hulu. Those are the 3 that I remember. I know there are more, but those are the 3. With shampoo brands, it's the same thing. For the longest time, I've been using Dove. So that's the one that I remember. I know there's Pantene and there's other brands, but this is the top of mind. So all of you guys, because of your own personal experiences, because of what you like and what you don't like, because the type of advertising that you consume, like it or not, you guys already have a top of mind. So next time you're going to buy something, just think about, what else do I like? And if you want to change your brand or not. So this is very important because when you're creating a brand, you want to reach to this point. You want to be a brand that is at the top of mind of your target audience. The next slide, we're going to get a little bit into graphic design because graphic design is the area, or basically the group of people, graphic designers, that help create brand identity and how a logo would look like. So I want to start with logo evolution. Logos are they're an intrinsic part of a brand. They basically define the look and feel of the brand, and all the branding elements, all that stuff that we've been talking about, they're all built around them, like the colors, the shape, the typefaces, the images, the tone, and the voice. Logos are meant to be simple. If you're going to create a logo, even in school, if you have a project and you need a logo, always remember this. Logos are meant to be simple, they're meant to be iconic, they're meant to be functional, and most of all, easy to remember. I think most of you guys have seen the Apple logo on a phone, on a laptop, on a TV spot, on a store, and you recognize maybe the 2017 one. Is that the one you guys remember the most? I hope you do. But if we look at this Apple logo history, look at the initial logo in 1976, when Steve Jobs decided to start this company with his partner in a garage. This is the first logo. This logo is extremely complicated. It is even difficult to see. I cannot understand that, but I can tell you, this is Newton sitting below the apple tree, and there's an apple about to hit him on the head, because that is the actual story. So it was really complicated. You can see that says Apple Computer Company. So in 1997, the logo was redesigned to become what we all know now as the logo. This logo has a really interesting story. A lot of people don't understand what the logo is on Apple with a missing piece. The reason why Apple is called Apple, the Apple as a company, is because Steve Jobs knew that computers back in the 70s were very complicated. They were really big machines that needed to be put in a room like your bedroom. We didn't have laptops, we didn't have desktop computers, we didn't have phones or tablets. We have what it looks like a server. They were massive, massive computers. So Steve was trying to reinvent the computer and make it portable, make it a home computer. So when he talked to Rob, the designer that first did the logo, he told him, this company is a family company. I want this to be familiar. I want this to be simple. I want this to be entertaining and not techy, as in very technology oriented. So he told the name of the company is Apple. So if you create a logo for Apple as a company and you create an Apple image like the one you see in the 1977, you're going to have a problem. That companies that actually sell apples, like the fruit, they all have apples in their logos. So the designer had a problem, and they're like, how do I solve this? So he made a very simple logo. So it doesn't look like a real fruit. It's very simple. And then he took a piece of it, like someone took a bite of the apple. But the reason he did that, and the only reason, there's no other reason than this, is the fact that he needed the apple to look different than the rest of the apples that people were drawing for companies that actually sell apples. So this logo doesn't necessarily represent technology and future, because Apple actually is not trying to communicate that. So a lot of people look at this logo and they don't understand how an Apple communicates technology. But you really need to understand that Apple is not trying to communicate technology. They sell you technology, that is a different story, but they're trying to sell you something that is familiar, that is soft, that is entertaining, that is organic, and it doesn't feel challenging. So that is why logos have to communicate something specific, but they don't have to tell you the story or the brand. And logos change because technology changes and design changes. If I show you my work from my early days, you guys will look at it and say, oh my God, this looks so old and ugly, because things have changed. Graphic design changed. So a lot of the changes. So a lot of these logos need to evolve, and you see how soon they evolve. There was a big gap between 1977 and 1998. Then 2001. In 2001, in the world of graphic design, Apple introduced something that is called skeuomorphism. And not to get too technical, but that is making things look realistic. So they have shadows and highlights, they have reflections, and then that's what you see that logo in 2001. And that style carried all the way to 2007. But in 2017, Google in general as a company is starting introducing a new design wave, which was called flat design. And flat design is just what the word means, flat. No shadows, no reflections, no highlights, no textures, no patterns. So that logo in 2017 is based on flat design. All you see is a flat color and the shape. So that is logo evolution. Logo evolution evolves at the same time the brand is evolving. You cannot evolve. You cannot stay old. You need to stay relevant. You need to keep evolving because new generations like new things. New generations see things differently. So you have to evolve with the people that are also evolving.
Andres, we have a question. How often should a brand logo change?
That's a good question. There is not a specific timeline for your brand to evolve. You have to look at, remember when we talk about your positioning and where your brand lives, you have to look at the trends. You have to use data that we have now. A lot of companies can give you data about what's happening in the world. So you have to look at data and say, we are looking old. Your logo will start looking old. Your color will start looking old. Your typefaces will start looking old compared to the new things. And at that time is when you go, I need to make a change. Or if your brand wants to say something and they're going to change from, let's say you're selling bicycles to now you're selling technology because your bicycles now are powered by electric engines. So now you're in the technology electric industry. So maybe your message is changing. So you might have to update your logo to reflect a little bit of that. So there's not a specific timeline for you to change. You just have to be open to change. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the next thing is brand architecture. Brand architecture can get tricky. So I'm just gonna try to explain it in a simple way. Is the organizational structure of a company's portfolio. Portfolio means if your company has multiple brands. For example, Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson makes shampoo for kids, but it makes shampoo for women and men. It also makes sunscreen, and it makes all kinds of things from soap and other stuff. So they have a lot of brands under the Johnson & Johnson brand. So that is what it means to have a portfolio of products. FedEx is a very simple example of that, because graphically you can tell what the brand architecture is. At the top here, you see FedEx Corporation. That's your main logo. That's the brand. But they have different things, which are called pillars. They have different pillars or verticals. So there's FedEx Office. And if you look, FedEx Office is different than FedEx Express and Ground and Networks and Freight because the color changes. So that's how I recognize it. But the word Fed is always the same because it's always the same brand. So the only thing that changed is the color. And that tells you, the consumer, when it's that light blue, oh, this is Office. But if I need to send something to Colombia really fast, I'm going to go to FedEx Express. So when I see that logo outside a store, I know it's a FedEx Express store. So they sell things, they send things anywhere in the world super fast within a day. So that is brand architecture. Now I want to make a quick exercise here. Please, any of you, who can tell me who's who here? Who are these logos? Does any of you know every single logo here? Or want to try? Want to try to guess?
I want
Gaia?
to try. Okay, so Netflix, Apple, Spotify, Nike, Mercedes, Facebook, J Balvin, Lululemon, TikTok, Louis Vuitton, Pepsi, and Nacional.
Oh my God, I need to send you cookies or something. Awesome job. That's it. Okay, that is your top of mind. The fact that you can recognize every single logo in this page, which is quite incredible. Veronica couldn't. So there you go, Vero. That's amazing. So congrats. That's great. A lot of people can do that, but a lot of people can't. So if some of you felt like you didn't know some of these brands, the reason for that, maybe it's because they're not part of your tribe. Maybe it's because you have not seen their advertising. Maybe it's because you don't really care about, let's say, Lululemon, or you don't like soccer, so you don't care about Nacional. So this is just a good example of what brands do. This is their power. If you can recognize all of them, they're doing a good job. If you recognize only Netflix because you love Netflix, then they're doing a good job, because that's the thing. You have to be able to recognize this. I only put the logo symbols here. The names are not here. Usually you will see the Netflix logo with the Netflix name. You'll see a Spotify with Spotify below. But just with the logo alone, you were able to recognize all of them. So awesome job there. This will lead us into this. Let's talk about personal branding. Let's talk about influencers and how this happens. So what is personal branding? It's basically the ability to establish and promoting what you stand for, like what you're saying. Who are you? Your personal brand is the unique combination of skills and experiences that make you you, that makes you special, that makes you unique. Have an USP. You're always going to hear this in advertising and branding and marketing. USP, that's your unique selling proposition. That is the one thing that you have that nobody else has. And you're going to use that as an omni-channel strategy. And I'll tell you what omni-channel means in a second. Because you need to keep your story going on all touch points and consistently and often as you can. So for example, here you're looking at one of my favorite artists. This is Greg Mike. It doesn't matter if I don't see his face because he's covering that really funny square face. The moment I see these colors, the moment I see these drawings, I know this was done by Greg Mike. No other artist does this. No other artist has this style and is really recognizable. And this is his personal brand. It's colorful, it's loud, it's crazy, it's out there. He does graffiti, he makes packaging, he makes logos, paintings, and anything you guys want. But it's always the same. It's always the same style. Consistency is key for any brand, personal branding or corporate branding. It doesn't matter. Consistency is very, very important. And you can see here in these images that all his stuff looks the same, even when it's black and white. So let's talk about a couple things that you guys might need to create your personal branding. Find your voice and share it with the world. That is the first thing. Remember we talk about personality, voice, and tone? Your voice is what do you want to say and how do you want to say it? In order to get there, you're going to have to use all of these little things that are here. You need to be real. Just be you. You need clout. Clout is your power in the social networks to influence other people. Obviously, that happens over time, but maybe you influence your friends on your Instagram. Maybe they love your Instagram stories, or maybe they love your TikTok videos or your YouTube channel. So the more you build your clout, the more influence you have, the more your circle of your influence expands. You have to engage with your audience, which is what we're doing here. You have to talk to people. You have to be able to be engaging and answer difficult questions and communicate all the time what you're thinking. You have to give people's opinions on their own opinions. So that way, people stay engaged with you as much as you stay engaged with the people. Then you need to stay consistent. If you are not consistent, then people don't know what you're about. People don't know what your message is about. So remember, stay consistent and do it every day. Find what makes you unique. That takes time because that is part of like, who am I? And that question is complicated. But throughout the years and looking at the things you love and the things you know and the things you're interested in, you're gonna find what is unique about you. It might be your personality, that you're really goofy or you're really happy or you're really nerdy and you love manga in Japanese animated films. Or you love making desserts and you're that girl that is almost like a baker at this point. So find what makes you unique. Find that and stick to it. Tell a story. Everything online is a story. And the more engaging and the more real your story is, the more you love people. If you guys have seen the J Balvin documentary on Amazon, you'll see that it's a lot easier to fall in love even more with him because of how real he gets. Because you see the real J Balvin. You see him succeeding and being amazing, and you see his struggles. All of us have those too. All of us go through different periods of time where sometimes we struggle a little bit, but sometimes we're making it. So tell your story. Just always find it and let people know what the story is about. And the last thing is to keep it omni-channel. What this means is there are multiple channels. There are multiple ways to communicate your story and that uniqueness of your message. You can do it on social media. You can create a website. You can create a YouTube channel. You can send me an email. You can send letters. You can make a TV spot. You can make an animated reel. Anything. The thing about keeping it omni-channel is that when you do it in one place, you do it in all. So if you only have Instagram and TikTok, when you put an Instagram story or a post, do it in TikTok too. So you keep it omni-channel. So people that might follow you on TikTok, but they don't follow you on Instagram for a reason, they get the message. So keep it in all the channels. Brands do this all the time. When you look at a TV spot, when you go to the store, when you get an email from them, you see that the communication is always the same, and that makes it successful. And that means omni-channel. Finally, I have 3 examples here to talk about personal branding. If you are familiar or not with any of them, it is relevant to a conversation, but also not. And I will tell you why. So let's start with Billie Eilish. Do you guys know who this is?
Yes.
Do most of you know who she is?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll tell you why personal branding is important. And something when I was talking to Veronica yesterday, Veronica didn't know much about Billie Eilish, and that is a generational thing, right? I work with a lot of younger people, and I love her music, and I love Billie. When you look at it here, what do you see? You see green and black, and you see her hair. That is basically her trademark. That is her look. Her latest album, she looks different. So she's reinventing her image. But the way Billie Eilish introduced herself to the world and to all of us, and how we fell in love with her music and her attitude was like this. That funky green, her hair always like this. And in every video, and in every interview, she was wearing those big sweaters and the baggy clothes. That is her personal brand. And she uses it and she keeps it consistent. So that is the most recent good example that I can give you guys on someone creating a brand, being amazing at creating a brand, being an amazing person, a talented musician, and then keeping it consistent. Remember this, just because you create a brand doesn't mean that people are going to love you. We love Billie Eilish, not just because of her personal brand, but because of how big her talent is, because how amazing of a musician she is. So the core of this personal brand is your skill. How skillful you are at something. That makes you valuable. And then that makes your brand valuable. She is amazing. She won a whole bunch of Grammys. So there's a lot of respect for her, just not because she has a personal brand, but it's also because she's very talented. And that's the same thing goes for Lady Gaga, for example. The guy in the middle here is El Pibe Valderrama. Most of you guys probably heard of him or not. He's an older guy. He used to be our captain in the Colombian national team. And the reason why I have this photo here is because personal branding sometimes happens without you having to do it. El Pibe Valderrama didn't grow up with social media. He didn't grow up with a smartphone. You know, we were making phone calls with a regular phone. So no screens, no nothing. But he knew something. He knew that everybody recognized his hair. Even in the United States, people still ask me about him. And people here don't know his name. You know what they tell me? Hey, do you remember what is that soccer player, the one with the yellow afro? And I'm like, yes, Valderrama. They're like, yes, Valderrama, he's amazing. So this is something that happens sometimes. This is consistency. Maybe he was thinking, oh yeah, I can create a personal brand or not. I think he didn't, but he did it anyways because everybody knew who he was for 2 reasons. How talented and how good of a footballer he is, or soccer player he is, and then his hair. And he never cut it because he knew he was his signature. So that is another way that personal branding happens. If you have a physical attribute that is so different than anybody else, you can use that a little bit because people already recognize you because of that. And then the third person here, which is someone that I love too, which is Michelle Obama. So why is Michelle Obama here about personal branding? It's not about what Michelle wears or how she looks, even though she has an extremely good sense of fashion. The reason why Michelle Obama has a really good personal branding is because her messaging, because her consistency. She has always stand for kids and health. She wants the kids in the United States and all over the world to be protected, to have good care, and to be healthy. So she's always advocating for the meals that people eat in high schools and middle schools. She wants kids to have more access to good food and not just fat food. She created programs for kids and moms alike to work out, to be in shape. She has trying to get the world in general to protect kids and to protect their health by changing the infrastructure of medical services and programs, sports programs throughout the world. So her brand is very clear to anybody that follows Michelle. We all know what she stands for, and she doesn't change it. So that is a really easy, recognizable brand, personal brand, without having to do what Billy does, which is clearly very graphic, because you can tell with Michelle Obama, she can wear anything, she can change her hair, and that kind of stuff, but she always and consistently delivers the same message on all channels, on social media, when she goes to interviews, when she writes a book, is always the same. So that is the value of her personal brand. And with that said, that is the actual presentation. So I'm gonna stop sharing. I hope you guys enjoy this.